The doubt. The first time I heard it, I laughed. You'll never make it, they said. My family, my so-called friends, even colleagues who claimed to support me, they all repeated the same phrase, as if a chorus of doubt could shape reality. I was 25, broke, and standing at the edge of a dream that seemed impossible to those around me. I had an idea, a vision of creating something remarkable, a company that would revolutionize the way people experience technology, community, and opportunity. But the obstacles were tangible. No investors, no office, no contacts, and very little experience. Yet somehow, amid the cynicism and laughter, something inside me stirred. The first weeks were brutal. I lived off coffee, instant noodles, and sheer determination. Days began before dawn and ended long after the city's lights dimmed. I spent hours drafting plans, researching markets, analyzing competitors, and learning skills I'd never imagined mastering. Every rejection stung. Banks turned me down, venture capitalists ignored my emails, and some mentors offered advice that felt more like insults than guidance. You don't have the resources. You're too young. Stick to something realistic. I filed each statement in a mental drawer labeled motivation. Every doubt thrown at me became fuel. I reminded myself, they don't see the vision. They can't see the future. But I do. By the second month, I had a prototype. It wasn't perfect. Far from it. But it was tangible, a first step into uncharted territory. I stayed in a cramped apartment that doubled as a workspace, surrounded by sketches, computer screens, and sticky notes plastered to every wall. Friends stopped visiting. Family questioned my sanity. Why waste your time on something that won't work? They asked. The words stung, but they no longer mattered. I had a fire, and fire consumes doubt. One night, as the city slept, I sat hunched over my laptop. The prototype was running, and for a brief moment, I allowed myself a smile. The software I had built, the framework I had coded, even the first sketches for branding. It was alive. Not yet recognized, not yet valuable to the world, but alive. And in that moment, I realized something crucial. Success doesn't begin with applause. It begins with belief in yourself, in your vision, and in the relentless pursuit of something no one else can yet imagine. The first real breakthrough came when I pitched my idea to a small angel investor. I expected skepticism, maybe even laughter, but instead, he leaned back in his chair, studied the prototype, and asked questions that showed he saw potential. Not a guarantee of success, but the first seed of opportunity. That's impressive, he said, voice measured. But are you ready for the scale this will require? I smiled a quiet, confident smile. I'm ready to learn. Weeks turned into months, and the company began to take shape. I hired a few like-minded individuals, people who shared my vision and were willing to sacrifice comfort for the promise of building something extraordinary. The office was modest, more a shared space with second-hand furniture than a corporate tower. But it was ours. The skeptics didn't stop. Emails and messages continued. It'll never work. You're wasting your life. Dreams don't pay rent. But each challenge reinforced a truth I had come to embrace. The people who criticize are not necessarily evil. They are simply incapable of seeing what you see. And that vision, combined with relentless effort, can transform the impossible into reality. By the end of the year, we had a functioning product and a small but loyal base of early users. It wasn't global, it wasn't perfect, but it was proof. Proof that what others dismiss could, in fact, exist. I sat in the office late one night, looking around at the faces of my small team, tired, focused, and determined. We were building something they could only dream of. And even as exhaustion weighed on us, the excitement in our eyes spoke louder than any doubter ever could. A message from my old mentor arrived. A simple text. You're doing the impossible. Keep going. And I knew it wasn't over. Not even close. The world would continue to doubt, to mock, and to underestimate. But we had started something extraordinary, and the only question that remained was how far we could take it. The struggle. The months that followed were relentless. The thrill of initial progress gave way to the harsh reality of scaling a business that no one believed could succeed. Every day brought new obstacles, testing not just our skill, but our resilience, creativity, and commitment to the vision. Investors backed out at the last minute. Software glitches emerged, sometimes erasing hours of work in a heartbeat. Employees we had trusted left abruptly, unable to handle the pressure. It was a crucible, burning away the weak, the uncommitted, and the undecided. I remember one night, sitting alone in the dimly lit office. The prototype had crashed again, and our server was down. Emails from frustrated early users piled up. The small team I built looked to me, exhaustion and worry in their eyes, expecting guidance, reassurance, and a plan I didn't fully have. I could feel doubt creeping in, the kind that whispers, maybe they were right, maybe you can't do this. But I pushed it aside. We had come too far. Giving up now would mean surrendering not just to others' doubts, but to the part of myself that feared failure. I reminded myself of the first night, when the seed of belief took root. That spark was still alive, and I would not let it die. The next few weeks became a blur of long hours, strategy meetings, and sleepless nights. I coded alongside my team, fixed bugs, rewrote algorithms, and tested features until our eyes burned and our bodies ached. Every minor victory, a user signing up, a feature working flawlessly, a compliment from an early adopter, felt monumental. Yet, the obstacles never stopped. Competitors copied ideas, rumors spread questioning our credibility, and media outlets dismissed us as another overambitious startup destined to fail. Each blow was a reminder that we were swimming against a current stronger than any we had imagined. Through it all, I learned the power of leadership. It wasn't enough to work harder. I needed to inspire, to calm fears, to guide my team through uncertainty. Every conversation mattered. Every decision carried weight. I became a manager, a strategist, and a motivator, all in one. One evening, I addressed the team. We're facing challenges bigger than we expected, but every setback is a lesson. Every obstacle is an opportunity. If we quit now, the dream dies. If we push through, we create something they could only dream of. Their eyes met mine, tired, but burning with renewed determination. I knew then that this team wasn't just employees. They were co-creators of vision, equally invested in proving the doubters wrong. Then came the funding crisis. Our small reserves were nearly depleted, and investors had grown skeptical after repeated setbacks. I pitched tirelessly, traveling across the city, presented anyone who would listen. The rejection rate was staggering, 17 no's in a row 1 week alone. Each no cut deep, but each also strengthened my resolve. I learned to listen without losing confidence, to adapt without compromising vision, and to persevere without losing myself to fear. Finally, a breakthrough arrived. A small venture group, impressed by our persistence and ingenuity, agreed to a modest investment. It wasn't enough to solve all problems, but it was enough to keep the fire alive. We could continue building, iterating, and proving that the impossible was within reach. As we implemented the funding, we faced the next challenge: scaling. The prototype had worked in a controlled environment, but real-world use brought unforeseen complications. Servers crashed under pressure. Clients demanded features that weren't yet ready, and the pressure of expectation weighed heavily on everyone. It was chaos, but it was beautiful. Every challenge revealed weaknesses to fix, opportunities to seize, and lessons to internalize. We learned to move quickly, adapt faster, and communicate more effectively. What once seemed like insurmountable problems became stepping stones for growth. Through sleepless nights and constant setbacks, the team bonded. We laughed at absurd glitches, celebrated tiny victories, and comforted each other during moments of despair. The vision became more than a business. It became a shared mission. And in the quiet hours, when the office was empty and the city lights shimmered outside, I would reflect on those first doubts, those voices that said I would never make it. They had underestimated more than just me. They had underestimated what vision, resilience, and determination could achieve when wielded with relentless focus. By the end of that brutal year, we had turned struggle into progress. The product was stable, the first paying clients were on board, and the team had survived, stronger, smarter, and more united than ever. But the journey was far from over. The world still doubted. Competitors still lurked, and opportunities were still unclaimed. Every success revealed new challenges, and every milestone was just another beginning. Yet, As I looked around at the small but fiercely dedicated team, I knew one undeniable truth. We had begun to build something they could only dream of, and we would continue, no matter what it took. The breakthrough. The morning sunlight streamed into the modest office, casting long shadows across the scattered blueprints, half-empty coffee cups, and glowing computer screens. For the first time in months, I felt a cautious optimism stirring. We had survived the chaos, navigated through constant doubt, and somehow turned setbacks into lessons. But the real test was only beginning. Our product, once fragile and experimental, was ready for a controlled launch. The stakes were high. One mistake, one flaw, and the months of relentless work could be undone. Every client, every investor, and every competitor's eyes were on us, waiting to see if we would crumble or soar. I gathered the team around the small conference table, their faces a mix of exhaustion, excitement, and nervous anticipation. This is it. I began, my voice steady despite the fluttering in my chest. Everything we worked for, every sleepless night, every rejection, every doubt, it all leads to this moment. We succeed not just for ourselves, but to prove that vision, persistence, and belief can overcome the impossible. A silence fell, thick with tension, before nods of agreement rippled across the room. The launch day arrived. Users began to access our platform, testing the features, exploring the interface, and interacting with our carefully crafted experience. The first few hours were tense. Servers were monitored relentlessly, each click analyzed, each interaction scrutinized for bugs. Then it happened. Positive feedback began to roll in. Users praised the intuitive design, the innovative features, and the sense that the platform genuinely made their lives better. A small wave of media coverage started to appear, blogs, tech forums. Even local news outlets picked up on the story of a scrappy startup defying expectations. The office erupted. Some team members jumped from their chairs. Others hugged quietly, tears glistening in eyes that had seen too many failures to celebrate lightly. That night, as I walked home beneath the city lights, I reflected on the journey. We had turned skepticism into belief, scarcity into resourcefulness, and doubt into fuel for relentless action. Each challenge, each moment of despair, had built a foundation stronger than any brick or beam could provide. And yet, the story was far from complete. This was only the beginning of recognition. Expansion would bring new obstacles, competition, scaling problems, market pressures, and the unrelenting weight of expectation. In the weeks that followed, the momentum accelerated. Investors who had once dismissed us returned, eager to participate. Early users became brand advocates, spreading the word faster than we could have anticipated. New employees joined, drawn by the vision and the infectious energy of a team that had learned to survive adversity. We moved into a larger office, still modest but functional, filled with energy, innovation, and a relentless drive to build. Every corner of the space reminded us of how far we had come, from a cramped apartment with peeling walls to a bustling hub of creativity and ambition. But growth always brings tests. As the platform gained popularity, competitors tried to imitate our features. Some attempted to sabotage our reputation, spreading false narratives and unfounded critiques. Media outlets, initially skeptical, scrutinized every minor flaw, ready to pounce on any misstep. It would have been easy to panic, to retreat into caution, but I had learned to see challenges as opportunities. Each threat forced us to innovate faster, refine processes, and strengthen the culture of accountability, collaboration, and excellence. One evening, a potential acquisition offer came from a major corporation. The sum was staggering, enough to change our lives forever. Some team members whispered about taking it, about the security and freedom it promised. I paused, reflecting on our journey. Accepting the offer could provide comfort and recognition, but might also dilute the vision, compromise the mission, and hand over control of what we had fought so hard to build. No, I said finally, voice firm. We are not here to sell a dream. We are here to build it, and what we are building cannot be handed over. It must be created and guided by those who share the vision. The room fell silent and then erupted in applause. Loyalty, shared vision, and the fire that had brought us this far were stronger than any temptation. Months later, We reached a milestone that many had claimed impossible. Our platform had thousands of active users, recognition from industry leaders, and a growing network of partnerships. The dream that seemed laughable to so many had become reality, and impossible was tangible. Yet even as we celebrated, I knew the journey would never end. Expansion meant navigating uncharted markets, unforeseen challenges, and the constant evolution of technology and human behavior. The critics, the skeptics, and the doubters would always exist. But now, their voices were background noise compared to the momentum of a vision that refused to die. One night, as I stood on the balcony of the new office, looking out at the city that had once seemed insurmountable, a message pinged on my phone. You've done more than we ever imagined, but the world is watching, and your next move will define more than your company. It would define an era. I smiled, understanding that this was only the beginning. The breakthrough had come. The impossible had been realized, but the story was far from finished. Bigger challenges, greater responsibilities, and opportunities far beyond our imagination awaited. Because building something they could only dream of was one thing. Sustaining it, expanding it, and leaving a legacy would require courage, creativity, and vision at a level few had ever dared to achieve. And I was ready. The legacy. The office was alive with energy, a far cry from the cramped apartment where it all began. Screens glowed with real-time data. Teams collaborated across multiple floors, and the hum of innovation was palpable. We had arrived, but the journey had only intensified. The company had grown beyond anything we had imagined. Thousands of users, recognition from industry leaders, and a network of partnerships that spanned continents. Our platform was no longer just a product. It had become a movement, a symbol of perseverance, vision, and the triumph of relentless effort over doubt. Yet, with great success came unprecedented challenges. Competitors, inspired by our rise, launched aggressive campaigns to replicate our features. Regulatory hurdles emerged in markets we had barely entered. Media scrutiny intensified, turning every small misstep into headlines that could shake confidence. The team felt the pressure, but I reminded them of the lessons we had learned in the early days. Resilience is forged in adversity, and vision is proven through action. We built something extraordinary, I told them during a late-night meeting. The city lights shining behind me, but the world will test us at every turn. The question is, will we rise to meet it? Will we protect what we created, grow it, and leave a legacy worth remembering? Nods and murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. We had survived the struggle, celebrated the breakthrough, and now we face the ultimate test, not of resources or skill, but of character, integrity, and leadership. The first major challenge came in the form of a hostile acquisition attempt by a multinational conglomerate. They offered a sum so large it could have solved every problem, removed every doubt, and ensured personal security for the team. Some employees hesitated. Comfort, safety, and prestige tempted them. But I understood the deeper purpose of our work. What we had built was not just a company. It was a vision, a movement, and a legacy. To hand it over would be to surrender the very essence of what had brought us from obscurity to impact. I addressed the team. We can sell out and gain security, or we can protect the dream, expand it, and continue building something that outlives all of us. This isn't just a business, it's a statement. That perseverance, vision, and courage can defy expectation. Are we ready to fight for that? Silence fell. Then one by one, team members nodded, eyes alight with determination. We would fight, not with aggression, but with ingenuity, strategy, and unyielding dedication. The battle was intense. Legal teams scrutinized every document. Investors debated risks, and the media speculated endlessly. But we persevered, using innovation, transparency, and community support to solidify our position. The very people who once doubted us, clients, users, and even former critics, now stood behind the company, recognizing the authenticity and resilience that had brought it to life. Meanwhile, I found myself reflecting on the journey. From the early days of mockery and doubt to sleepless nights building a prototype, every struggle had been a lesson. Every failure had been a step toward mastery. And now, as the company stood on the brink of becoming a global influence, I understood something profound. Success is not merely what you achieve, but the lives you touch, the inspiration you create, and the legacy you leave behind. In a moment of quiet, I called the founding team together. "Look at what we built," I said, voice soft but resolute. "But remember, this is not the end. Every milestone we reach will bring new challenges. Every innovation will be tested, and the world will always try to underestimate us. The difference between those who succeed and those who fail is not resources, luck, or talent alone. It's vision, persistence, and courage." Their faces glowed with pride, exhaustion, and readiness. They understood the way of the moment. We had not just survived doubt. We had thrived because of it. Then came the final test. A sudden global market shift threatened our user base. Technological changes forced rapid adaptation, and unforeseen competitors pushed boundaries we had barely explored. It was chaos, uncertainty, and pressure intensified 1,000-fold. But the company had evolved alongside the challenges. Processes were agile, the team resilient, and the vision unshakable. We adapted, innovated, and turned each crisis into opportunity. The impossible had become habit, and we were ready for anything. As I stood in the main office, overlooking the bustling floors and screens displaying real-time activity around the world, I realized the truth. The journey that began with mockery, doubt, and impossibility had grown into something far greater than any of us could have imagined. Yet, even now, with global recognition and achievements beyond expectation, the story was far from over. Opportunities for expansion, unforeseen challenges, and a call to leave a lasting legacy loomed on the horizon. Because when you build something they could only dream of, the work doesn't end with success. It evolves, grows, and challenges you to reach heights even you cannot yet imagine. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The vision would continue to expand. The dream would inspire countless others. And the legacy we had begun to write was far from complete. The future waited, unpredictable, thrilling, and boundless, and I was ready to meet it, one bold decision at a time. The Yendi, with the journey complete for now, but the door wide open for further chapters, evolution and expansion.